Hey everybody, thank you for joining us on the FareCompare weekly video podcast, episode number 32. In this particular episode, we're going to be chatting a bit about a new study that we put out that shows what happens when you get some increased competition to the Caribbean, the Southwest effect, as it were. And we're also going to talk about sort of a handful, in fact, I think it's 5 things that will guarantee that your next trip does not go well, and that means it's a lousy trip. And then we'll also take a couple questions, or at least one, from a customer. And joining me today on this podcast is our editor from the site at FareCompare.com, Ann McDermott. Hey, Ann.
Hey, Rick. Speaking of the Southwest effect, I know there have been people in recent years who have said, oh, this is disappearing. It's pretty much over. But it's not.
It's not. I'm not so much sure that it's the Southwest effect anymore than it is just having the competition effect. But just the term Southwest effect was coined several decades ago when Southwest Airlines, just in its fledgling after airline deregulation in 78, started to expand. And when they would enter a city with cheaper prices, lower fares, not only would that help everybody in the particular market, but it also actually got more people to actually fly than used to fly. So flying wasn't only for the rich at that point. More people could fly. And now, Ann, we're up to, I think, a couple million people a day flying domestically. So it's been a wild ride the last 2 or 3 decades. Now, here's part of the problem. The last 6 or 7 years, starting off with Delta United merger, and then Delta Northwest, I guess. We'll get to United in a second. Delta Northwest, United Continental, Southwest AirTran, American Airlines, U.S. Airways. More recently, Virgin America, being quote unquote acquired by Alaska Airlines. That's not good for the competition effect. But here's the good thing about this interesting new study that we've done. We decided to take a look at the Caribbean and some of the Mexico beach destinations and see if this new terminal in Houston that Southwest built to do international flying, they actually started international flying as part of their acquisition of AirTran, had actually dropped the price. Now, we had to worry a bit about Zika virus, which has been in the news the last 2 or 3 months in that particular area. We want to make sure we didn't catch too much. But the data is pretty clear, and it shows a couple things. First of all, and the Southwest, by the way, is flying out of this Houston terminal one stop for many people that connect in Houston, for those folks in Houston lucky enough, nonstop to places like Cabo, Cancun, Cozumel, Belize, Costa Rica. I think they fly to both cities in Costa Rica, also Jamaica as well, and Montego. And we hope to see more of those, that the prices drop on a per-person basis about $150 or close to 25%. And that's what I like to call the Southwest effect or the competition effect. And this is a great thing for consumers. Now, I will note, Dan, if you try to buy a ticket at Christmas time for under $900, good luck. That's the Caribbean. So it's not always the effect. It's not every day of the week. It's not every time of the year. But certainly, for the most part, this has dropped pretty dramatically.
Well, I think it's interesting that you call it the competition effect, Southwest competition, because, I write up deals every day. And, more and more airlines are going to the Caribbean. I mean, it must be getting very crowded there. You see JetBlue and Southwest, and it's like everybody wants a piece of that pie.
Yeah, another interesting thing we noticed as part of the data is basically the entire flip over the last several years of Puerto Rico basically being a very important piece of the American Airlines system, actually flipping over to being JetBlue. JetBlue also, and Spirit Airlines also going into the Caribbean. JetBlue even announced on its earnings call recently that they probably overcooked their capacity into the Caribbean. That's good for consumers, by the way. Keep cooking, by the way, folks. And so for the most part, we haven't seen base prices change a whole lot, and for the most part, inventory is down. We also had the DOT come out saying prices were down a couple quarters ago by 8%. Remember, folks, if that's you out there shopping, you're getting some of that benefit, but the people that are getting the most of that benefit are business travelers that are used to paying $800, $900, $1,000 for their tickets. They're the ones seeing the bulk of that 8% drop.
Well, that's a very good thing, and I gather that we're going to keep keep looking at some more Southwest and look at more in the Caribbean in general to see how people coming from other parts of the U.S. Can get there for less, or what
Yeah,
the.
we're gonna continue to watch this, and we're gonna keep an eye on it. I think as we add more destinations, we're gonna see some prices drop in those areas as well. So, yeah, good luck for everybody trying to get down the Caribbean. This is the time to start shopping for that for the next 8 months. You're going to get a better ticket than you've had in the last few years.
Okay, well, that's the good news. And the bad. Now let's talk about some bad news. Ways to have a terrible trip, a lousy trip, as they say. And apparently, the ace brains here at FareCompare, we've all gathered. We were asking a bunch of people
Yeah.
what makes a trip terrible, and these are pretty good ones.
Yeah, I noticed number one was drive yourself to the airport. Now, and I have to admit that I fly a lot, and there's been several times when I got to about, maybe half a mile of the airport, and then the cars all stopped, and I was beating on my steering wheel. So driving yourself, is a problem, and leaving an hour ahead of time, or trying to slide in like I do 15, 20 minutes beforehand, is probably not a good idea for most folks. I end up having to take a sort of a back way that I knew to get there, but in those two issues, I know it's really easy. I mean, parking fees have really gotten much higher.
Yeah.
I know they do have some concierge. Sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes if I'm in a pinch with my own car, but I do almost on all my holiday vacations take Uber to the airport, just because on a week trip or 10-day trip or something like that, it's just cheaper to do so.
And there's all kinds of ways to get to the airport. A lot in many cities. There's rail, there is shuttle bus service, and all. I mean, check it out. Look around, because it's just such a mess. You don't want to do that. You don't want to pay $30 a day or whatever it is at your airport. It's going to be a lot.
Exactly. I know making it on the list again is jars of stuff in your check bag.
That bottle of wine, that jar of jam.
I actually had a friend the other day that tried to bring a bottle back from San Francisco, and had it all over their clothing. I'm positive that clothing doesn't exist anymore. I'm pretty sure you can't get that out in many cases. Although my wife tries with this crazy wine away stuff, I'm not sure exactly that works or not. But in general, packing anything breakable at all, especially if it's got some sort of liquid in it that can stain or damage your clothing, not a good idea. And certainly, if it's over 3.4 ounces, it's not going to make its way to you if you're trying to take it in through security and through the carry-on section.
I think so many of us just forget. You think, I'm going to bring a hostess gift, and you stick a nice bottle of wine or a bottle of whatever, and you put it in your carry-on, and you watch in horror as, they say, well, you can take it and ship it, and of course you're looking at your watch and you go, I can't ship it, and it gets tossed. Tossed.
Yeah. And I think the other one that I think this has happened to almost everybody. In fact, you don't see this quite as often. I've seen sort of wacky pictures of 16 people hanging each other fighting over the power plug in the airport.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to power up their devices. Even me, I actually left one of my devices in the plane. I actually got it back, which was sort of a different story. But basically, it's nothing like having your cord cut by having your battery, at 30% and watching it whittle down to 5% as you need it to make that change in reservation while your plane's late.
Yeah. And one final thing is that you should never overpack your carry-on, because especially this summer, they are, I have seen them throughout the spring, airline representatives coming up to passengers and saying, do you mind if I weigh that? Or let's stick this in that size measurement thing, that little template they have around the airports, and people get their bags taken away from them. Now, they don't always have to pay the fee. I think in most cases with the big airlines, they don't have to pay the fee. But still, the whole point of having a carry-on is to be able to keep your stuff with you, or at least that's a big point with me.
Yeah, with me, it's being able to eject from the airport much faster. So it's good for all things, and the baggage police will be out this summer. It's going to be a crush. We talked about the TSA having trouble checking people in this summer in the last podcast. Yeah. So it's going to be some slow going. So get there a little bit earlier, and don't stick that crazy stuff in your check bag, and don't overstuff it, and have some fun when you get there.
Thanks, Rick. And now we have a question from one of our readers, our viewers, our seers, whatever, a customer.
Our casters.
This is a good one. It's from George from Coffs Harbour, and I actually looked it up, and it looks like it's just beautiful, in Australia. And he says, "Hi, I'm a U.S. citizen living with my family in Australia. I'm retired with time and excellent date flexibility," which is, right away, this guy's winning. And he wants to know what country is cheapest and best to originate on for an around-the-world trip. And he also wants to know, can he buy round-the-world tickets this year and come back in, say, like 6 or 9 months? And he also wants to know if he can buy separate round-trip tickets, using them to go around the world, maybe September going in one direction and then use the return portions to come back. This man does have some time on his hands because he's able to formulate such a complicated trip, and my hat's off to you, buddy.
Yeah, and I want to figure out how he's going to book all these hotels in this.
Well,
when he gets there, a lot of people do this. Yeah.
I noticed. I looked it up. Coffs Harbour, where he's from, it's about 500 miles from Sydney, and it's about 400 miles from Brisbane. If that helps you any.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No. Okay. So, all right, George. Couple different things. Round the world tickets are the purview of the Alliance programs, One World, Sky Team, Star Allowance. That's Star Allowance. I had to give my daughter allowance this morning. Star Alliance. Sorry about that. Star Alliance. Those are the places where the round the world tickets. Now they have round the world tickets. They have Visit Pacific Rim tickets. They have different variations for cabin types. They also have different variations for how many stops and stopovers you can make, how long the ticket lasts. In many cases, some last 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. So it looks like it can actually accommodate, his 6 to 9 month range if he wants to do that. Round the world tickets are your best bet if you basically want to have extreme flexibility, because it's giving you basically a number of stopovers as opposed to having to know ahead of time, buying a refundable ticket. You can also, for example, when you're on one of these round the world tickets, certainly you can buy a low-cost airline. There's many of them around the world. If you just want to take a side trip and your particular alliance in one of these 3 cases doesn't have it, you can also buy a side trip. No big deal doing that as well. So it's not that easy. You can go to their websites, by the way. You can buy these tickets. There are a handful of agents out there that specialize in these tickets. Just type in RTW or Around the World. RTW is a sort of acronym that's used in the travel lingo for these kind of tickets. Also, if you're only traveling around Asia and the Pacific Rim, they also have Visit the Pacific Rim tickets for that too, which are a little bit cheaper than the round the world tickets. Now, I will note that many of these tickets don't allow you to sort of hop back and forth, right? So it's sort of like you have to go one direction around the world. Backtracking back and forth and sort of going anywhere you want to is not something many of these tickets allow.
So I suppose, you could do it on your own. You could piece together a trip, but boy, that sounds like it would be fraught with a lot of possible problems.
Yeah, if you're a really good airfare hacker and you're familiar with low-cost airlines around the world, you could probably hack your way around pretty good. It depends on how much luggage you're going to carry on this big jaunt. Certainly, if you're gonna hack it yourself, you better be sort of a light packer and in that particular vein. If you're a heavy packer, you're better off going on with some of the Alliance programs that are out there that can help you out with connecting luggage. For example, when you switch airlines, all their partner airlines also have luggage things that you can do. So if you're sort of carefree and light packing and don't mind that stuff, you can sort of hack your way around, and you're comfortable with technology. And by the way, phone technology is not great for hacking these kind of trips. You've got to have either a tablet or some sort of laptop computer to hack your way around. But you also have to hack your way around the hotel bookings as well. So not for the faint of heart. I would go with the Alliance program, especially if I was a heavy packer.
Now, he asks which country is cheapest or best to originate an around-the-world trip, but it sounds like it kind of doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't really matter for a round the world trip. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're asking which country in the world has the cheapest airfare, at the moment, the cheapest airfare to originate around the world, if you happen to be there, is in the Middle East. For a variety of reasons, they're running about 20 to 30% originating and going into Middle Eastern cities at the moment. Some new ones that hit our list recently. Nordic countries are pretty cheap right now. They've got some low cost long haul carriers doing some stuff
Yeah.
there. So, but in general, when you have a round the world ticket, it's all about how many stops you want to make.
Well, I know that helped, George. I hope you have a wonderful trip, but I really hope you tell us all about
I
it.
wish I could sit there and help George plan this because it would be fun to do. I haven't done a round the world ticket in a long time, so this is something that I used to play around with 4 or 5 years ago, but I haven't really tinkered with it too much lately.
If anybody's got else has a question, I know Rick really loves these, as you can tell. Please send it to customer.service@faircompare.com, and we'll try to help you out.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Don't forget to download our app, faircompare.com/app, called Eventrist. A couple new destinations that I saw, events that added in just this morning, actually, when I was looking at it this morning. So check that out as well, and then you can catch the video podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. And hopefully you'll catch us in episode number 33 next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Rick.